embroidery has a rich and detailed history. It's been around like forever. Whether you're into historical fashion or just into modern embroidery, you're probably familiar with the concept of an embroidery sampler. What started out as a way for professionals to show a sampling of their work for potential customers had developed by the 17th century into a way for young girls to practice their special skills. Or in this case, elder millennials with a twisted sense of humor who have decided to approach a new skill with baby steps instead of diving into a deep pool of complication without practice, because that always results in anxiety and burnout, and nobody wants that these days. Now, I have done some embroidery already on this channel. I'll link to those videos in the description if you happen to have missed them, but this time I really wanted to sit down and learn it properly. And I thought it'd be fun to take you on the journey, because of course this is Fantastical Follies and we can't just copy an extant and be done with it. Oh no, we have to overcomplicate everything and add wacky details because life is too short to be boring. For the actual learning of the embroidery stitches, I'm using two separate books, the V&A 17th Century Women's Patterns books, Volume 1, Volume 2. They both have very detailed explanations of all of the embroidery stitches that you use to make the garments in the actual books. So the first thing I did was just to go through the book and pick out some stitches that I thought I wanted to learn. I was specifically focusing on the ones that I didn't immediately recognize, right? Because a lot of these have not changed over the years. And then I whipped up a scrap piece of fabric with a little design to do my initial practice. Now, before I show this to you, disclaimer, embroidery is a relatively new skill for me. I've only been doing it a couple of years, and the only formal class I've ever taken was in blackwork, which is its own type of monster. However, if you're an embroidery person, please don't just go into the comments and tell me everything I'm doing wrong. Unless I specifically ask for advice, which might happen, please don't just give it. Nobody likes a so-splainer. I will figure these things out eventually on my own, right? Okay, with that out of the way, it's awful. This is, I think, the worst embroidery I have ever done in my life, and that includes the very first thing I did, which looked actually kind of cute. Part of this was because I was rushing, and part of it was because I did not draw it out well. I just schlepped it on, so I'm gonna 86 it. Bye-bye. And instead I thought I'd show you what you really want to see, which is my 17th century sampler. 17th century embroidery samplers come in two basic forms. The spot sampler, which is just like random motifs scattered here and there on the canvas, and band samplers, which are very long and very skinny. So naturally, that's the vibe I want to go for. Whoop. Helps if you put it the right way up. Here it is in all its glory. Now I'm gonna go through all of these designs with you as I go through them, and you may recognize certain things on here. I hope you do. Really excited about this. It took me like 3 days to draw all of this out by hand. I think it's gonna be fun, but before we can do that, we gotta get that all transferred on to our actual fabric. Unlike the 18th century and beyond, these particular samplers were not really meant to be displayed. Instead, they were kind of easy to roll up and use as a reference for later, more complicated stitching. Believe it or not, this first section is pulled directly from one of the extants I found perusing the internet. I've dubbed it the Shamrock and the Angry Muppet. I'm not entirely sure what this was supposed to be originally, maybe a bear, but once you see the Muppet, you cannot unsee the Muppet. Opting to use a buttonhole stitch here for the fuzzy, angry eyebrows. This section separator is the first of our historical stitches, and this is titled the Tent Stitch by the V&A, and it is a line that is standing almost at full attention, but not quite. Now, there is only one reason in my admittedly demented and degenerate brain that something that looks like this would be described as a tent stitch. I'm sure that was not the intention. Get it? But in my brain, that's why it's called that. Next is a section I've dubbed Hearts and Spuds. This is also based off of one of the sections from an extant sampler with one starchy change. There's nothing groundbreaking about it, although I am rather pleased with how these little spuddies turned out. This separator line, however, is another stitch I pulled from the book. It's a fairly common modern stitch, but one I've never personally used before, at least in embroidery, called a chain stitch, which is not the same as the chain stitch you use in crochet. So basically, you loop around and then go down into your previous stitch, then back up through the fabric at the next stitch. I honestly struggled to get this to look good. My loopies kept wanting to de-loop and just look like a straight stitch. Probably need to practice more. All right, I just finished this section here. So this is a very popular motif throughout many different samplers, this weird like trapezoidal vine design with flowers. I didn't really film it, and I can wrap up my thoughts in this section in one tiny sentence. I do not approve of these infernal tiny stitches! Ah! It was not fun. So I started out using 2 strands about here, and then about here I just lost my temper. It was taking so long and it looked so messy that I upped it to 4 strands. So here's the 1 strand, and here's the double strand, so the 4 versus the 2, and it just looks so much better. It's so much neater, and whoo, extreme close-up! Ah! It looks so much nicer and it took so much less time. So I think I'm going to go a little easy on myself moving forward, and for the things that are going to be filled in and such, I'm gonna go ahead and just do the 4 strands. And with that, we're gonna move on to the next section, which I'm really excited about. It's called the banana boat section. This one was inspired by the banana bustle dress I made a couple of winters ago, particularly the hat. So of course our bananas are going to have sunglasses and smirks, and we'll fill the glasses with glorious, thick satin stitches. The next part of the design is period. Titled the sheaf stitch, this little nubbin is made with 3 straight lines and a little cinch in the center, which does not at all look like a little Spidey. No resemblance to an arachnid whatsoever. So naturally you want to backstitch down the web first, and then stitch 4 hypothetically straight and parallel lines, then go back up over those lines. Draw your needle underneath all 4 stitches and give it a pull to cinch in the center, then stitch into the back of the fabric to secure. They're so cute! So this next section is one of the most important. It's a section of embroidery pulled from this book, Patterns of Fashion 5, which is the whole reason I'm learning the embroidery in the first place. But removed from the whole context of these stays, they look like palm trees. I didn't quite have enough of this light green, so I'm opting to do 2 colors. And yes, I did consider putting coconuts on here, but there are only so many balls I can add to this sampler before I get demonetized, so let's move on. One thing I think is really cool about these samplers is that even though there are definitely motifs that repeat over all of the samplers, each and every one is different and indicative of the person who made it. I really love the idea of making the sampler into something that is very much a personal project. So I really encourage you, if you are someone who embroiders or if you're interested in making something like this, to double down and really think about the things that you like, the things that you are inspired by, and use those to make your own sampler uniquely you. And with that in mind, up to now, we've been doing things that have been reasonably normal, if a little quirky. But from here on out, we are going to do what Fantastical Follies does best and descend very fast into utter chaos. Starting with the very next section that is titled The Lobster and the Seagull. Some of you may be very familiar with this image. Cannot unsee lobster. Yes, that's right. We are doing the next section in honor of the lobster dress that I spent so much time making 2 summers ago. One of the most prevalent stitches, both in the V&A books and the extants I found online, is the detached buttonhole stitch. This is worked essentially over the canvas, tacking in only at the points of the outline. It's a basic buttonhole stitch, and you work each one into the stitch above. I sure hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, please consider giving it a thumbs up and letting me know in the comments what your favorite section of this sampler is. Small things, big result. Also, thank you so much to my supporters over on Ko-fi. Your continued support means I can continue making videos. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do. If you have the means to contribute and would like to, I've linked to it down below. Admittedly, I'm having a tough time learning from these books. Most of the instructions are just pictures without any kind of detailed text. Plus, I'm left-handed, which means I basically have to reverse everything. So fun. So the detached buttonhole stitch looks pretty crappy. Look, it's so crappy that the camera doesn't even want to focus on it. Focus! There you go. Looks pretty bad. So I decided to go ahead and just do like a stacked satin stitch for the rest of the lobster. And now he looks like a fuzzy Muppet lobster, but that's okay. Now we need to put in the eyeballs. Cross my heart and hope to die. Stick a needle in my lobster. With the lobster done, we're officially halfway and I'm super excited. It's starting to look really, really good. This next section is based off an actual extant, like some of the other sections I have, but I'm not sure with the original embroiderer, that's a hard word to say. I'm not sure what they were actually going for. Maybe they were supposed to be hearts, but there's no point at the end of the heart. And a heart with no point can only be one thing, a butt. So I've officially titled this the Butts and Spades section. I told you we were gonna descend fast into chaos, and if you think that's bad, wait till we get to the boxers. So I did not realize when I first started planning this video how hard it was going to be to film, given that most of what I'm doing is sitting in the same chair doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Hopefully you're still finding this entertaining. I'm doing the best I can. And with that in mind, let's talk about tackling the next historical embroidery stitch, which is technically not an embroidery stitch, but an actual sewing stitch. That is the eyelid stitch. Eyelid, eyelet, get it? Basically what this is an alternative to a standard eyelet that you would sew on a pair of bodies. However, instead of just whipping around, you're whipping and blanket stitching the edge. And it actually kind of looks like an eyeball. But we're currently doing the Butts and Spades section. And you know what else it looks like? A sphincter. So guess what? This is now officially called the sphincter stitch. Grab your handy dandy awl for this one. Start by inserting your needle from the back a little distance away from the hole and pull through. Then, instead of whipping each stitch, stop before your loop is entirely gone and pull your needle through it, creating a blanket stitch. Work your way around, trying to keep each stitch equidistant from the last. It's not as easy as it looks, as you can see by my less than satisfactory progress. I did eventually get the hang of it by the last one. And now for the main attraction, the boxer. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up. The boxer is a familiar motif in embroidery starting in the 16th century. The image is of a masculine presenting person with one arm extended, like he's about to land a punch, and generally holding a flower of some sort. You know, young ladies dreaming of a handsome suitor, I guess. Anyway, looking at extant mid-17th century examples, these boys are everywhere, so naturally we need to put some on our sampler. The thing about all of these little boxers that I found on all of the extant samplers is that the flowers they're holding are rather suggestive. So I decided this is Fantastical Follies, let's take that a step further. Now I polled you both on Instagram and Discord, and there was quite a bit of hot debate over what kind of suggestive object we wanted our boxers to be holding, and there was no clear winner, so I decided let's do two of them. So our middle dude is flipping the bird, and our other two fine gentlemen are holding their swords. When I was trying to decide what I wanted these dudes to look like, I decided this was going to be Lobster, Louis, and Armand. However, because Armand and Louis both have black hair and black embroidery floss is so hard to do and so hard to show on camera, and because I can't stand Louis, he is a whiner and he's undeserving of Lobster's love, it's going to be Nicolas, Armand, and Lobster. Let's tackle the hard thing first, that darn detached buttonhole stitch. I practiced first with Lobster's hair. While I was at it, I went ahead and tackled the books, using one color for each stack but varying the order. Let's now tackle the detached buttonhole on Nicola. What the V&A book failed to mention, but a YouTube video told me, is that you need to run an anchor stitch across the width of your shape first before attempting the buttonhole loops. Run your needle under the back stitching, under your anchor stitch, and then through the loop hole. I'm very inconsistent here because of how hard it is to film at this angle, but after a while I figured out the easiest angle for me that made this process much faster. All of your following rows, you'll put your needle through the bottom of the above stitch and the anchor stitch instead of through the top back stitching. I would argue that that is like the perfect texture for 17th century masculine hair. And the more I do it, the faster I get, and I actually think I prefer it over the satin stitch for the big chunks. I think it just looks so much neater, which is great. And you may have noticed that I've started to move on. That is because in less than 48 hours, I'm about to get on a plane for Japan, and I can take the embroidery with me, but I cannot take the camera with me. So basically, anything that I want to show you has to be done tonight. And with that in mind, why don't I show you what you really want to see? The swords. It was extremely tempting to make these entire swords flesh colored, but in a tragic fit of rationality, I decided to make the shaft of the sword metal colored. I fully regret using 4 strands of this metallic thread. It would have looked nicer with 2, but I couldn't bring myself to take it out and redo. Maybe sometime in the future I'll fix it. The hilts, however, are full-on flesh toned, and I have 0 regrets. Oh my God, your hair! Yes, and my head feels so much lighter. And with that, my friends, it is Tokyo time. So we are going to pack everything up, and I'll show you the rest of the stitches when we get back. Good morning! After 2 weeks of whirlwind travel, some tasty, tasty food, and 31 hours in a row without a single lick of sleep, I am back in the States, and the embroidery is finished. I'm gonna go wash it, dry it, press it, and then I'll show you the final result. even though these particular samplers weren't meant to be framed, after all of that hard work, I am absolutely going to frame it. Unfortunately, it's a weird shape and I can't just go to the store and buy a standard frame for it. I will have to get that custom made. So eventually you will see the sampler up on the wall, probably over in my sewing area. And yeah, feels good to be done. Woo-wee! What I thought I could knock out in a week actually turned into a full 2 months of labor. Part of that, I admit, is because I couldn't do much of it during my normal hand sewing time, which is after dinner while I'm watching TV and settling down for the night. I really have to embroider in broad daylight, so that limited me on when I could work on it. The good news is I think the labor was well worth it. It looks great, and I think I've really improved my skills in the process. Originally, I had planned to start the embroidered 1690 stays this fall as soon as I finished my Dickens on the Strand outfit and my outfit for next year's Chicago Ball. But since I'm hosting this group's 17th century sew along this fall, and then Patterns of Fashion 7 is gonna be out, the 1690 stays probably aren't gonna happen until maybe late 2027. But at least I'm in better shape with my embroidery when I'm finally ready to tackle that thing. If you're interested in joining the 1660 sew along, please go check out the dedicated channel in the Discord server. I will be polling you on dates very soon so I can get started on my own. I'll be hand sewing the entire thing, so I really need to get things going just as soon as the weather calms down a little bit here in Texas. It's still very hot. Thank you for making it to the end. You get a gold star. That's it for me. I love y'all, and I'll catch you in my next video.